good day to all of you grade 7 learners. Welcome back to Collections TV. Are you ready for another fruitful day of new learning experiences about communication and language? We're happy to hear that from you. As always, we are going to continue our series of learning adventures on this online platform. I am your teacher on screen, Miss Sarah Granada, and I will be your learning buddy for today. And together, let us learn and enjoy while in the comfort of our homes.
Our topic for today is about the story My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Sampayan Bulosan. This lesson is based from Mount 28. Discover through Philippine literature the need to work cooperatively and responsibly in today's global village. The target objectives of this lesson are first to discover through Philippine literature the need to be socially responsible, and second, to identify ways on how to be socially responsible as a student. Now, to start the lesson, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the expression justice delayed, justice denied? Think about this question as you go through in the first activity entitled Words Crumble. Here are the directions. Unscramble the jumbled letters in each number to reveal the word being defined. Use the given pictures as clues. You will be given 5 seconds to unscramble the jumbled letters, or you may pause the video if you need more time to think. Are you ready? That's good to hear. Let's start with number 1. This is a statement that a situation is unsatisfactory or unacceptable. The answer is complaint. Good job. If your neighbor tells you that your music is too loud and is causing distractions, then your neighbor is complaining or having a complaint due to their dissatisfaction. Number 2. A person who is responsible for a crime or other misdeed. The answer is culprit. Nice work. Let's move on to number 3. Is a licensed professional who advises and represents others in legal matters. The answer is lawyer. Very good. Maybe you or someone you know wants to become a lawyer someday. Number 4. A group of people who have been chosen to listen to all the facts in a trial in a law court and to decide if a person is guilty or not guilty, or if a claim has been proved. The answer is jury. You're correct. Number 5. A public official appointed to decide cases in a court of law. The answer is judge. Good job. Number 6. A tribunal presided over by a judge, judges, or a magistrate in civil and criminal cases. The answer is court. You're correct again. And the last word, a small mallet with which an auctioneer, a judge, or the chair of a meeting hits a surface to call for attention or order. The answer is gavel. You did a good job in this activity. Now that we have discussed the key terms relevant to the lesson, let us now recognize the author of today's story. Carlos Sampayan Bulosan, November 24, 1913, September 11, 1956. He was a Filipino novelist and poet who was born to his Ilocano parents in Binalonan, Pangasinan. He was an English language Filipino novelist and poet who immigrated to America. Bulosan wrote his first short story, My Father Goes to Court, in 1943, and it was published in the New Yorker magazine. As we read the story, take notice of the important parts, such as how the characters relate to each other, where the story takes place, and what each character expresses with their actions. While the story is being read, I want you to ponder on these questions. Are rich people happy because they have everything? Are poor people sad because they don't have anything?
My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan. When I was 4, I lived with my mother and brothers and sisters in a small town on the island of Luzon. Father's farm had been destroyed in 1918 by one of our sudden Philippine floods. So several years afterwards, we all lived in the town, though he preferred living in the country. We had as a next-door neighbor a very rich man, whose sons and daughters seldom came out of the house. While we boys and girls played and sung in the sun, his children stayed inside and kept the window closed. His house was so tall that his children could look in the window of our house and watch us played or slept or ate when there was any food in the house to eat. Now, this rich man's servants were always frying and cooking something good, and the aroma of the food was wafted down to us from the windows of the big house. We hung about and took all the wonderful smells of the food into our beings. Sometimes in the morning, our whole family stood outside the windows of the rich man's house and listened to the musical sizzling of thick strips of bacon or ham. I can remember one afternoon when our neighbor's servants roasted 3 chickens. The chickens were young and tender, and the fat that dripped into the burning coals gave off an enchanting odor. We watched the servants turn the beautiful birds and inhaled the heavenly spirit that drifted out to us. Some days, the rich man appeared at a window and glowered down at us. He looked at us one by one as though he were condemning us. We were all healthy because we went out in the sun and bathed in the cool water of the river that flowed from the mountains into the sea. Sometimes, we wrestled with one another in the house before we went to play. We were always in the best of our spirits, and our laughter was contagious. Other neighbors who passed by our house often stopped in our yard and joined us in laughter. As time went on, the rich man's children became thin and anemic, while we grew even more robust and full of life. Our faces were bright and rosy, but theirs were pale and sad. The rich man started to cough at night. Then he coughed day and night. His wife began coughing too. Then the children started to cough one after the other. At night, their coughing sounded like the barking of a herd of seals. We hung outside their windows and listened to them. We wondered what happened. We knew that they were not sick from the lack of nourishment because they were still always frying something delicious to eat. One day, the rich man appeared at a window and stood there a long time. He looked at my sisters, who had grown fat and laughing, then at my brothers, whose arms and legs were like the Malave. which is the sturdiest tree in the Philippines. He banged down the window and ran through his house, shutting all the windows. From that day on, the windows of our neighbor's house were always closed. The children did not come out anymore. We could still hear the servants cooking in the kitchen, and no matter how tight the windows were shut, the aroma of the food came to us in the wind and drifted gratuitously into our house. One morning, a policeman from the Presidencia came to our house with a sealed paper. The rich man had filed a complaint against us. Father took me with him when he went to the town clerk and asked him what it was about. He told Father the man claimed that for years we had been stealing the spirit of his wealth and food. When the day came for us to appear in court, Father brushed his old army uniform and borrowed a pair of shoes from one of my brothers. We were the first to arrive. Father sat on a chair at the center of the courtroom. Mother occupied a chair by the door. We children sat on a long bench by the wall. Father kept jumping up from his chair and stabbing the air with his arms, as though we were defending himself before an imaginary jury. The rich man arrived. He had grown old and feeble. His face was scarred with deep lines. With him was his young lawyer. Spectators came in and almost filled the chairs. The judge entered the room and sat on a high chair. We stood in a hurry and then sat down again. After the courtroom preliminaries, the judge looked at Father. "Do you have a lawyer?" he asked. "I don't need any lawyer, Judge," he said. "Proceed," said the judge. The rich man's lawyer jumped up and pointed his finger at Father. "Do you or do you not agree that you have been stealing the spirit of the complaints, wealth, and food?" "I do not," Father said. "Do you or do you not agree that while the complaints servant cooked and fried fat legs of lamb or young chicken breast, you and your family hung outside this window and inhaled the heavenly spirit of the food?" "I agree," Father said. "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant and his children grew sickly and tubercular, you and your family became strong of limb and fair in complexion?" "I agree," Father said. "How do you account for that?" Father got up and paced around, scratching his head thoughtfully. Then he said, "I would like to see the children of complaint, Judge." "Bring in the children of the complaint." They came in shyly. The spectators covered their mouths with their hands. They were so amazed to see the children so thin and pale. The children walked silently to a bench and sat down without looking up. They stared at the floor and moved their hands uneasily. Father could not say anything at first. He just stood by his chair and looked at them. Finally, he said, "I should like to cross-examine the complaint." "Proceed." "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your wealth and became a laughing family while yours became morose and sad?" Father said. "Yes." "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your food by hanging outside your windows when your servants cook it?" Father said. "Yes." "Then we are going to pay you right now," Father said. He walked over to where we children were sitting on the bench and took my straw hat off my lap and began filling it up with centavo pieces that he took out of his pockets. He went to Mother, who added a fistful of silver coins. My brothers threw in their small change. "May I walk to the room across the hall and stay there for a few minutes, Judge?" Father said. "As you wish." "Thank you," Father said. He strode into the other room with the hat in his hands. It was almost full of coins. The doors of both rooms were wide open. "Are you ready?" Father called. "Proceed," the judge said. The sweet tinkle of the coins carried beautifully in the courtroom. The spectators turned their faces toward the sound with wonder. Father came back and stood before the complaint. "Did you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" the man asked. "The spirit of the money when I shook this hat," he asked. "Yes." "Then you are paid," Father said. The rich man opened his mouth to speak and fell to the floor without a sound. The lawyer rushed to his aid. The judge pounded his gavel. "Case dismissed," he said. Father strutted around the courtroom. The judge even came down from his high chair to shake hands with him. "By the way," he whispered, "I had an uncle who died laughing." "You like to hear my family laugh, Judge?" Father asked. "Why not?" "Did you hear that, children?" Father said. "My sisters started it. The rest of us followed them. Soon, the spectators were laughing with us, holding their bellies and bending over the chairs. And the laughter of the judge was the loudest of all."
I hope that you liked the story as much as I liked it. And for us to understand the story more deeply, let us answer some questions for the next task entitled "In Line with the Story." Here are the directions. Read the questions carefully. Choose the letter of the correct answer. Let's start with number 1. Why were they amazed when they saw the children of the complainant? Letter A, because they were nourished and healthy. Letter B, because they were fat. Letter C, because they were thin and pale. Letter D, because they were average. The correct answer is letter C, because they were thin and pale. Nice work. Number 2. Why did the rich man's family file a complaint against them? Letter A, because they wanted to get revenge for their fallen brethren. Letter B, because they claimed that they had been stealing the spirit of their wealth and food. Letter C, because they claimed that they steal their food. And letter D, because they hate the family. The correct answer is letter B, because they claimed that they have been stealing the spirit of their wealth and food. Good job. Number 3. How does the family of the farmer differ from the family of the rich man? Letter A, the rich man's family became victorious and healthy while the other family grew weak and ill. Letter B, the rich man's family grew sickly and tubercular while the other family became strong of limb and fair of complexion. Letter C, both families lived happily ever after. The correct answer is letter B. The rich man's family grew sickly and tubercular while the other family became strong of limb and fair of complexion. Very good. Number 4. What do you think is the lesson of the story? Letter A, the gift of nature. Letter B, the gift of Santa. Letter C, the gift of politeness. Letter D, the gift of laughter. Correct answer is letter D, the gift of laughter. Excellent job, grade 7 learners. Now, it's time to ponder. Let's go back with our motive question. Are rich people happy because they have everything? Are poor people sad because they don't have anything? Look at the way the poor family thinks about life. They don't have much, but the earth is giving them what they need to survive and be healthy, which is why they don't give importance to material things. On the other hand, the rich family became sickly and unhappy. Always remember that being poor or rich doesn't define your happiness. Let's move on to our next activity entitled Reflection Time.
In this part of the lesson, we will try to answer more questions that would help us gain better insights into what the story is trying to tell us about health, justice, and society.
Here are the directions. Read the questions carefully, choose the letter of the correct answer. Number 1. According to the narrator, how did the poor family become healthy? Letter A, because they were always frying something delicious to eat. Letter B, because they went out in the sun and always in the best of spirits and laughter. Letter C, because they always stayed inside and kept the windows closed. The correct answer is letter B, because they went out in the sun and always in the best of spirits and laughter. Well done! Always remember that being rich doesn't mean you're happy too. If your happiness depends on material things, you will never be truly happy. Let's move on to question number 2. In court, what did the father of the poor family do when his family was accused of stealing the rich family's spirit of wealth and food? Letter A, he paid it by bestowing a straw hat owned by his son. Letter B, he paid it by giving centavo pieces that he took out of his pockets. Letter C, he paid it with the spirit of money by letting them hear the sweet tinkle of coins. The correct answer is letter C, he paid it with the spirit of money by letting them hear the sweet tinkle of coins. Splendid! Let me explain this a bit. In the story, the rich man accused the poor family of stealing the spirit of wealth and food. But how can you steal a spirit? How can you steal something that you don't see? Surprisingly, there's a sarcastic tone in the story. The father of the poor family paid it by something that can't be seen as well, which is according to the logic displayed by the thoughtless complaint of the rich man. He paid it with the spirit of the money from the sound of the tinkling coins. Let's proceed to question number 3. How does the poor family work cooperatively and responsibly? Letter A, they shut themselves out from the rest of the community. Letter B, they ate a lot of delicious food. Letter C, they were always in the best of spirits to share laughter in the neighborhood. The correct answer is letter C. They were always in the best of spirits to share laughter in the neighborhood. Great work! To apply that in our lives, we can be socially responsible in many various aspects of our lives depending on what role we play. Whether you are a student, a son, a daughter, or just by being part of your community, we can always contribute in positive ways for the benefit of the people around us. Just like the poor family, they played a good role despite their lack of material wealth, just by sharing laughter or happiness with the people around them. I hope you learned something from the poor family as well. Now, I want you to think about your community. How can you be socially responsible? At home, how can the family members benefit through your actions? And at school, what are the ways that you can contribute in a positive way? Our next activity will help you out in thinking of other ways to be responsible in various social settings. This activity's title is Choose a Pick. Here are the directions. Look at the given pictures and each number. Choose the letter of the picture that shows how to become socially responsible in different contexts. Number 1. At studying. Which of these photos shows a student who is being responsible? The answer is this in number 2. In this second set of photos, which one shows being socially responsible at home? The answer is this image. Nice work! Why not help parents do the household chores rather than spend time on your phone playing mobile games? And the last item, number 3. In the community, which group of children carry out their social responsibility? The answer is this picture. You did a good job. Instead of promoting hate or terror, think of a way to promote cleanliness or helpfulness. Now, think about yourself and how you relate to the story. How will you be socially responsible as a student? And before I end this lesson, I want to leave a motivational quotation from Winston Churchill. He said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give."
I hope that the story inspired you to contemplate your responsibilities not only towards other people, but also towards yourself. You should do yourself justice as well by gaining rest whenever you need it. Again, this is your online teacher, Miss Sarah Granada. Always remember that every day is an opportunity to learn. Have a wonderful day.